They laughed when Jake married Rosa, a poor, ambitious black woman chasing dreams that seemed impossible. Everyone thought he was throwing his future away, convinced that her big dreams would only bring him down. But years later, those same people looked on with envy as Marcus and Tasha's life turned into something extraordinary. What transformed their journey from one of doubt and struggle into the fairy tale everyone now admires. Bookmark. Go back. Before we dive into their inspiring story, comment below and tell us where in the world you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss out. When Jake married Rosa, a girl from a poor background with dreams that seemed impossible, people couldn't help but laugh. They said he was throwing away his future for a whim, sacrificing stability to chase a fantasy. But years later, when they saw the life they had built together, that laughter turned to envy. What happened that transformed their love story into something others could only dream of? Jake wiped his hands on his apron, a proud smile spreading across his face as he looked around his restaurant bustling with energy. The smell of sizzling burgers and crispy fries filled the air, blending with the cheerful chatter of customers. This place, this cozy corner diner, was the culmination of countless hours of hard work. It was his pride and joy, a little piece of his heart built from scratch. "Order up," Jake called out, his voice booming. Marge, his longtime waitress, quickly picked up a tray loaded with steaming plates and flashed him a grin. "Coming right up, Jake," she replied with a warm nod, hustling past him. As Jake turned to grab another order, the doorbell chimed, signaling a new customer. He looked up, his gaze settling on a young woman who seemed unfamiliar, yet somehow instantly captivating. She stood in the doorway, tall and slender, her dark skin glowing under the diner's warm lights. Her eyes sparkled with quiet confidence, yet there was an unmistakable hint of nervousness as she clutched her worn purse. She wore a coat that showed its age, and her shoes, while neatly polished, had scuffed heels that suggested long hours and many miles walked. But despite her worn appearance, she radiated strength and grace that made her stand out in a way he hadn't seen before. Jake straightened up, his heart unexpectedly skipping a beat. She looked around the diner, hesitating slightly before making her way over to the counter. There was something about her, a quiet dignity mixed with vulnerability, that tugged at his heart. "Welcome to Jake's Diner," he said, his voice friendly, his smile warm. "What can I get for you today?" The woman met his gaze, and at that moment, Jake felt something shift inside him. "Just a coffee, please. Black." Her voice was soft, but her words were steady, filled with a determination that was hard to ignore. As Jake poured her coffee, he couldn't resist striking up a conversation. "New around here?" he asked, sliding the mug across the counter. She nodded, a small smile pulling at her lips. "Just got here yesterday," she replied. "My name's Rosa. I'm hoping to find work as a model." Jake raised his eyebrows, both impressed and a little surprised. "A model, huh?" He looked her over, noting her graceful posture and striking features. "That's quite a dream." Her smile grew, lighting up her face as she responded. "It is, but I'm determined to make it happen, no matter what it takes." There was something about her spirit, an unwavering belief in herself, that touched Jake deeply. He found himself wanting to know more about this intriguing woman with such big dreams. Over the next few weeks, he noticed himself lingering near the counter whenever she came by, always finding an excuse to talk to her, to learn a little more about her life and the path she had chosen. Little by little, Jake discovered that behind Rosa's bright smile was a story of resilience. She had grown up in a struggling neighborhood, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. Yet, despite her hardships, Rosa had never let go of her dreams. It was something that resonated with Jake, who understood all too well the sacrifices that come with chasing something bigger than yourself. One evening, as they sat together at the diner after hours, sharing a simple meal of burgers and fries, Rosa opened up to him about her struggles. She held a warm cup of cocoa between her hands, her gaze distant yet full of fire. "I've wanted to be a model since I was a little girl," she confessed, her voice soft but unwavering. "Growing up, I never saw anyone who looked like me in magazines or on TV. I want to change that." Jake felt his heart swell with admiration. "That's amazing, Rosa," he said earnestly. You're going to make a difference. I just know it. Their connection deepened with every shared conversation, every quiet evening spent at the diner. But as much as Jake's heart yearned for Rosa, he could sense her hesitation. She was cautious, perhaps afraid that her dream would forever remain just that. A dream. One night, as they walked down the quiet streets of their small town, Rosa sighed heavily. "Jake," she murmured, "you're so kind to me, but I can't help feeling like I don't belong in your world. You've got this amazing restaurant. Everyone in town respects you, and me. I'm just chasing a dream that might never come true." Jake stopped in his tracks, turning to face her. "Listen to me, Rosa. Your dream is what makes you special. It's one of the things that drew me to you in the first place. Don't ever think you're not good enough." Her eyes filled with unshed tears as she struggled to voice her doubts. "But what if I fail, Jake? What if I'm just wasting my time?" His heart ached at the uncertainty in her voice. He wanted nothing more than to erase those doubts, to make her see herself as he saw her, strong, beautiful, and full of potential. And so, despite the whispers and the raised eyebrows from townsfolk, Jake continued to stand by Rosa, his belief in her as steadfast as ever. Little did they know, their love story was only just beginning, and the challenges they were about to face would test them in ways neither could have ever imagined. As Jake and Rosa grew closer, the small town's gossip began to swirl. Whispers followed them wherever they went, like an invisible shadow they couldn't shake. At first, Jake brushed it off, choosing instead to focus on Rosa's radiant smile and the light in her eyes whenever she talked about her dreams. But soon, the judgment of others became impossible to ignore. One afternoon, as Jake was closing up the diner, his longtime friend Brian leaned against the counter, a concerned look on his face. "Jake," he began, his voice low, "what are you doing with that Rosa girl?" His tone was casual, but there was an edge to it that Jake didn't like. "What do you mean, Brian?" Jake replied, already feeling his jaw tense. Brian shifted uncomfortably, his gaze dropping to the floor. "Look, man, she's, girls like her don't usually make it in modeling. Isn't it unrealistic? I just don't want to see you get hurt." The words hit Jake like a punch. He clenched his fists, taking a deep breath to keep his temper in check. "That's not true, Brian. Rosa's got the talent and the drive. Besides, I believe in her." His voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. But as Brian walked out, Jake felt a pang of doubt, a small, unwanted seed that tried to take root. And Brian wasn't the only one. At a family dinner later that week, Jake's mother pulled him aside, her expression heavy with concern. "Honey," she started softly, patting his arm. "This whole modeling thing, it's not a real job. What kind of future can you have with someone who's chasing such a dream? Think about what people will say." A mix of frustration and sadness filled Jake's heart. He had always valued his mother's opinion, but this time he felt something stronger, a fierce loyalty and protectiveness toward Rosa and her ambitions. "Mom," he replied, his tone gentle but resolute, "Rosa's dreams are part of who she is. It's one of the things I love about her." Over the next few weeks, it felt like Jake was constantly defending Rosa and her aspirations. People in town murmured behind his back, casting sideways glances whenever he and Rosa were together. They'd say things like, "She's not even that pretty," or "Who does she think she is?" Each comment felt like a small wound, yet Jake held his head high, determined not to let the words of others sway him. But the whispers took a toll on Rosa too. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the town in shades of pink and orange, they sat together on a park bench in a quiet corner of town. Jake noticed a heaviness in Rosa's expression, a sadness she tried to hide. "What's on your mind?" he asked gently, taking her hand in his. Rosa sighed, her gaze dropping to the ground. "Sometimes," she started, her voice barely above a whisper, "I wonder if I'm just chasing an impossible dream." She paused, struggling to find the right words. "It's like, everywhere I go there's a wall. I go to casting calls, and they tell me I'm not the right look, that there's no place for someone like me." Jake felt his heart ache for her. He reached out, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "Rosa, you're one of the most beautiful, talented people I know. Those people don't define you, and neither do their words. You have something unique, something that can't be ignored. And I'll be here, cheering you on every step of the way." She leaned into him, drawing strength from his support, but he could still see the doubt lingering in her eyes. But what if they're right? She whispered. Jake's heart broke at her words. He knew how hard she had worked, how many hours she'd put in, the endless auditions she'd gone to, only to face rejection after rejection. But he couldn't stand the thought of her giving up. They're not right, Rosa. One day, all of this hard work, all the rejection, it's going to pay off. I believe in you. Rosa managed a small smile, a flicker of hope reappearing in her eyes. Thank you, she murmured, her voice soft but filled with gratitude. I don't know what I'd do without you. As Jake and Rosa walked back to his diner that evening, hand in hand, he made a silent promise. No matter what, he would be there for her. He would support her dreams, even if it meant standing against everyone else. Little did he know that this commitment would be tested in ways he could never have anticipated. But despite his unwavering loyalty, the gossip around town only grew louder. Jake's friends, once supportive, began to distance themselves, whispering to each other whenever Rosa's name came up. People shook their heads, convinced that she was a pipe dream that would drag him down. Yet, for Jake, Rosa was his dream, a dream worth fighting for. The weight of the town's judgment pressed heavily on him, but every time he felt his own resolve start to waver, he thought about the fire in Rosa's eyes whenever she spoke about her ambitions, and in those moments he knew he would stand by her, no matter how lonely the journey became. As the weeks went on, Jake's unwavering support for Rosa became a hot topic around town. He could feel people's eyes on him whenever he walked down the street, their disapproval almost tangible. And though he tried to brush it off, the constant gossip began to wear on him. One afternoon, while prepping for the dinner rush at his restaurant, his old friend Brian stopped by. Brian was the kind of friend who always had a joke ready or the latest bit of town gossip. But today, there was an unusual seriousness in his expression as he leaned against the counter. So, Jake, Brian started, a hint of hesitation in his voice, we've all been hearing a lot about Rosa's latest attempt to make it in the modeling world. He paused, stirring his coffee slowly, his eyes downcast. Another audition? Another no, huh? Jake's jaw tightened. He took a slow breath, trying to keep his temper in check. Yeah, but that doesn't mean she's giving up, he replied, his voice calm but firm. Brian let out a sympathetic chuckle, shaking his head. Look, man, I just don't understand why you keep pushing her to chase this fantasy. I mean, she's a good girl, don't get me wrong, but you're working yourself to the bone to support something that's not going anywhere. Jake could feel his patience thinning. He looked at Brian squarely. I believe in her, Brian. That's all that matters, and I'd appreciate it if everyone else would keep their opinions to themselves. Brian shrugged, raising his hands in surrender. All right, no need to get defensive. Just thought I'd give you a little friendly advice. But his words lingered long after he had left, like an unwanted echo bouncing around in Jake's mind. Later that evening, as he drove home, Jake could still feel the weight of the town's judgment pressing down on him. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, fighting the urge to scream at the world to leave them alone, to let them live their lives without the constant scrutiny. But in the back of his mind, he couldn't help but wonder if maybe, just maybe, there was a grain of truth in their words. What if Rosa's dream was just that? A dream. Something unreachable. As he pulled into his driveway, he saw the light on in the living room window and felt a pang of guilt for even letting those doubts creep in. Rosa's face flashed through his mind, her hopeful smile and the fierce determination that had drawn him to her from the start. He knew he couldn't let the whispers and sideways glances shake his commitment. Walking through the door, he found Rosa curled up on the couch, flipping through a magazine filled with glossy photos of models in glamorous poses. She looked up when he entered, her face lighting up, though he could see the exhaustion in her eyes. Hey, beautiful. He greeted her, his voice soft as he sat beside her. She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder. I think I might have found a lead, she said quietly, her eyes filled with cautious hope. There's a small local shoot that might take a chance on me. It's not much, but it's something. Jake's heart swelled with pride and admiration. That's amazing, Rosa. I know you'll knock it out of the park. His words were filled with sincerity, and he meant every one of them. Whatever the rest of the town thought, he knew in his heart that Rosa had something special, something that set her apart. But even as he celebrated her small victories, he couldn't ignore the whispers that seemed to follow them everywhere. People would glance over their shoulders, murmuring, "There goes Jake and his pipe dreamer." Or, "She'll give up sooner or later. She has to." Still, they pressed on, with Jake doing everything he could to keep Rosa's spirits high. He worked long hours, covering extra shifts, and putting in more time to help make ends meet while Rosa pursued her passion. But the financial strain was starting to take a toll on both of them. The costs of professional photos, the stylish outfits needed for auditions, and trips to nearby cities all added up faster than Jake could have anticipated. One evening, they sat together at their small kitchen table, a sense of quiet desperation hanging in the air. Rosa pushed her food around on her plate, her appetite lost to worry. "Maybe I should just give up," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Her gaze dropped and Jake could see the defeat in her eyes. Maybe I should just find a regular job and help out more." Jake reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "No," he said firmly, looking her straight in the eyes. "This is your dream, Rosa. I knew it when I met you, and I still believe it now. We'll figure it out together." But even as he spoke, Jake couldn't deny the flicker of doubt that gnawed at the back of his mind. He loved Rosa more than anything, but he couldn't help but wonder how much longer they could keep going like this. The sacrifices were growing larger, the strain more noticeable with each passing day. And as much as he wanted to protect Rosa from the harsh words of the town, he couldn't ignore the toll it was taking on them both. Bookmark. Go back. In his heart, Jake knew that giving up wasn't an option, not for Rosa, and certainly not for him. She had a dream, and he had promised to be her rock, to stand beside her no matter what. But as the weeks turned into months, and the whispers grew louder, Jake was left wondering how much longer he could hold his ground against the tidal wave of judgment bearing down on them both. As time passed, the strain on Jake and Rosa's relationship became more palpable. Yet, Jake's commitment never wavered. But the disapproving whispers around town were relentless. It was as if everyone had something to say about Rosa's dream, her chances, and Jake's unwavering support. One evening, as Jake was preparing the diner for the evening crowd, Brian and another friend, Tom, strolled in, exchanging a knowing look before settling at the counter. They were regulars, always quick with a joke or a story, but today, their banter had an edge. "So, Jake," Brian began, his tone casual, "we heard Rosa's got another casting call lined up. Another one in the city, right?" He smirked as he stirred his coffee. Tom snickered, clearly in on whatever joke they'd cooked up. Jake nodded, keeping his face neutral as he finished wiping down the counter. "Yep, she's got another chance," he replied, trying to ignore the mocking look in their eyes. Tom chuckled, shaking his head. "A casting call, huh? She better enjoy it while it lasts. You know how these things go. Up one day, gone the next." His tone was full of feigned sympathy. Jake felt a surge of anger rises in his chest. He took a deep breath, keeping his voice steady as he spoke. "Rosa's worked harder than anyone I know. She's not going anywhere but up." The tension was thick, but Brian and Tom couldn't help themselves. They shrugged, exchanging glances. "If you say so, Jake," Brian muttered, sipping his coffee. Later that night, Jake found himself driving home with his mind racing. He knew how people talked behind their backs, questioning Rosa's chances and his dedication, and though he wanted to ignore it, he couldn't shake the doubts creeping in. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white, struggling to silence that small, insidious voice that whispered, "What if they're right?" But as he pulled into his driveway and saw the lights on in their cozy home, he felt a rush of resolve. Stepping through the door, he found Rosa sitting on the couch, her face glowing with excitement as she held a flyer in her hands. The moment she looked up, he could see the hopeful spark in her eyes. "Jake," she called out, her voice brimming with excitement. She held up the flyer, her smile infectious. "Look at this. There's a local beauty pageant next month, and I think, maybe, I should enter." Jake felt his heart swell with pride. "You should absolutely go for it," he said without hesitation, pulling her close. "This could be your big break." Rosa's smile faltered slightly, her eyes clouding with doubt. "But what if I fail again, Jake?" she whispered, her voice vulnerable. "The whole town will be watching. What if they're right about me?" Jake looked into her eyes, his expression serious yet filled with love. "Then we'll face it together, just like we've always done. Remember, their opinions don't define you. You're beautiful, inside and out, and you've got something they'll never understand: true resilience." With Jake's encouragement, Rosa threw herself into preparation for the pageant. She practiced her walk, refined her performance, and rehearsed her talent routine late into the night. Jake was there every step of the way, offering words of encouragement and cups of tea whenever she grew tired. The night before the pageant, Rosa couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, tossing and turning as 1,000 worries filled her mind. Jake could feel her restlessness and gently wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "You're going to shine tomorrow," he whispered into the darkness, his voice steady and reassuring. "No matter what happens, I'll be here. I'll always be here." The next morning, Rosa stood backstage, her heart pounding in her chest as she listened to the hum of the crowd on the other side of the curtain. She knew that many people had come expecting her to fail, to watch her stumble and confirm their doubts. But as she took a deep breath, she peeked through the curtain and found Jake's face in the crowd, his expression filled with unwavering pride. She locked eyes with him, and in that moment, all her fears seemed to melt away. Taking a deep breath, she stepped onto the stage. The bright lights momentarily blinded her, but she focused on Jake's smile, feeling his encouragement wash over her. As Rosa moved gracefully across the stage, her confidence grew with every step. She poured her heart into her talent performance, a spoken word piece on resilience and the power of belief. Her words resonated through the auditorium, leaving the audience in quiet awe. Even those who had once doubted her found themselves moved by her strength. Jake watched, his heart swelling with pride, unable to look away from the woman he loved. He knew that this moment was a testament not only to Rosa's hard work, but to her unwavering spirit in the face of relentless challenges. Finally, the results were announced. Rosa stood on stage, her heart racing, as the host's voice echoed through the hall. "And the winner is Rosa Carter." For a moment, she couldn't believe her ears. The crowd erupted in applause, and as the crown was placed on her head, tears of joy streamed down her face. She had done it. She had defied the odds and proven to everyone, including herself, that she was more than capable of reaching her dreams. As she looked out at the crowd, her gaze found Jake. His face was lit up with pride and love, his joy as real and profound as her own. In that moment, all the struggles, all the whispers and doubts seemed worth it. After the ceremony, as Rosa made her way off the stage, a well-dressed woman approached her. "Excuse me, Rosa," she began, extending her hand. "I'm Charlotte Mason, a talent scout from New York. I was incredibly impressed by your performance tonight." Rosa's heart skipped a beat, her hands trembling slightly as she shook Charlotte's hand. "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice filled with emotion. "Bookmark," Charlotte smiled warmly. "I'd love to talk about the possibility of working with you. Here's my card. Let's set up a meeting soon." As Rosa clutched the business card, the magnitude of the moment hit her. After years of facing rejection, a real opportunity had finally come her way. The door to her dreams, once closed tight, was finally beginning to open. Rosa could hardly contain her excitement as she walked off the stage, her hands still shaking from the thrill of winning. When she saw Jake waiting for her just outside the hall, her heart swelled. Without a word, she rushed into his arms, and he lifted her in a tight embrace, spinning her around. "You did it, Rosa!" he exclaimed, his voice full of pride. "I knew you had it in you." Tears filled Rosa's eyes as she looked up at him, her voice thick with emotion. "Jake, you won't believe this. A talent scout from New York wants to work with me." She held up the business card, her hands trembling. Jake's eyes widened with disbelief, quickly replaced by an overwhelming joy. "Are you serious? That's incredible, Rosa." He pulled her close, planting a kiss on her forehead. "I am so proud of you." The news of Rosa's win and the possibility of working with a talent scout from New York spread like wildfire through their small town. The same people who had once doubted her were now buzzing with curiosity and, in many cases, envy. Old acquaintances who had once scoffed at her dreams began sending messages of congratulations, while others offered their polite but hesitant smiles when they saw her in town. One evening, as Jake and Rosa shared a quiet dinner at the diner, a familiar figure entered. Mrs. Thompson, a regular customer who had been one of Rosa's most vocal critics. She approached their table with an awkward smile, glancing between them. Well, looks like our local celebrity is finally making a name for herself," Mrs. Thompson said, her tone somewhere between congratulatory and surprised. "You know, Rosa, I have to say, I didn't expect you'd get this far, but you sure proved us all wrong." Rosa smiled politely, nodding. "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson," she replied, her voice calm but filled with warmth. Jake squeezed her hand under the table, sharing a look of pride. It felt good, seeing the people who had doubted her, now watching in awe. But as much as Rosa enjoyed the feeling, she knew her journey was only beginning. In the following days, Rosa met with Charlotte Mason, the talent scout, in a small cafe near their town. Charlotte spoke with excitement about a modeling opportunity for a local brand's summer collection. Nothing huge, but it was real. It was a start, and it was the first door that had ever opened for her. As Charlotte explained the details, Rosa felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement bubbling up inside. It was a modest campaign showcasing casual wear for everyday women, but to Rosa, it was everything she'd been working toward. She glanced at Jake, who had joined her for moral support, and his eyes shone with pride. "This sounds perfect for you," he said, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "It's the beginning, Rosa, just the beginning." Charlotte leaned forward, her voice filled with encouragement. "You know, this campaign could lead to more opportunities. It'll get your name out there, and with your look and your story, well, I see great potential." Hearing those words felt surreal. After so many setbacks and disappointments, Rosa was finally being recognized for the qualities she had always known were inside her. Taking a deep breath, she looked up at Charlotte with a grateful smile. "I'd be honored to be part of this campaign," she replied, her voice steady. As they left the cafe, Rosa clutched the folder of campaign details close to her chest. For the first time, the weight of years of rejection and disappointment felt like it was lifting. She knew it wouldn't be easy, and she knew there would be more challenges to come, but with Jake by her side, she felt ready to face anything. As Rosa's first campaign approached, Jake was there every step of the way, cheering her on, helping her prepare, and reminding her of how far she'd come. They spent countless evenings going over poses, practicing expressions, and rehearsing lines. It was as though they were sharing a dream, her dream, together. On the day of the photo shoot, Jake made sure to accompany Rosa, arriving at the small studio where the shoot was set up. As she stepped into the lights and began her first professional modeling experience, Jake watched her with admiration. She moved with a natural grace and ease, her confidence growing with every click of the camera. She was stunning, but more than that, she was determined. After the shoot, the photographer pulled Jake aside, smiling. "You've got quite a star on your hands," he said with a nod toward Rosa. "She's got the look and the presence. With the right support, I think she could go far." Jake's chest swelled with pride. "I know she will," he replied with a smile, glancing over at Rosa as she laughed with the photographer and crew. He knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they'd face them together. As Rosa's ad campaign hit the local stores, she began to gain recognition around town. People who had once dismissed her as just another dreamer now saw her face on posters, showcasing her radiant smile and undeniable charm. It was a small step in her journey, but it felt like a giant leap for both Rosa and Jake. One sunny afternoon, Rosa's phone buzzed and she saw Charlotte's name pop up on the screen. Her heart raced as she answered, a mix of excitement and apprehension in her voice. "Rosa, I've got great news," Charlotte's voice bubbled over the line. "Remember that swimwear company I mentioned? Well, they want you for their summer catalog shoot." Rosa's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Are you serious? That's amazing." Charlotte laughed, clearly delighted by Rosa's reaction. "Absolutely serious. This is a fantastic opportunity and I know you'll do great." That evening, over dinner, Rosa shared the news with Jake, her voice overflowing with excitement. But as she mentioned the dates for the shoot, his smile faltered just a little. "It's the same weekend as the annual barbecue," Jake said, a tinge of disappointment in his voice. The barbecue was an event he and his friends had been looking forward to for months, and Rosa knew it. She looked down, a pang of guilt creeping in. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I can try to reschedule." But Jake reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "No, don't even think about it," he said, his voice firm but gentle. "This is a big opportunity for you. We'll make it work." At that moment, Rosa felt a surge of gratitude. She knew how much the barbecue meant to him, and the fact that he was willing to set it aside for her career showed her once again just how deeply he cared. As the weeks went by, Rosa prepared for the swimwear shoot, her excitement building. Jake continued to be her rock, supporting her every step of the way, even as the people around them watched with a mix of admiration and lingering doubt. Little did they know, this was only the beginning of an incredible journey for them both. As the day of the swimwear shoot approached, Rosa's nerves were at an all-time high. Jake could tell she was both excited and anxious, so he made sure to be there for her, offering words of encouragement and helping her prepare. The shoot was taking place in a scenic location by the lake, and Rosa knew this was her chance to make a lasting impression in the industry. The morning of the shoot, Rosa stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her hair and going over her poses one last time. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of everything she'd worked for to get here. "This is it," she thought, looking at herself with a newfound confidence. "I'm ready." When they arrived at the lake, the scene was bustling with activity. Photographers, makeup artists, and stylists moved around, each focused on their task. Rosa was directed to a small tent where she changed into the swimsuit selected for her shoot. As she walked out, she saw the sparkling lake and the lush green backdrop, a perfect setting for the summer catalog. Jake watched from a distance, his heart swelling with pride as he saw Rosa walk confidently onto the set. She moved with a grace that captivated everyone on the crew. The photographer adjusted his lens and called out directions, but Rosa needed little guidance. She posed naturally, her radiant smile and effortless beauty shining through with every shot. It was clear to everyone there that she was a natural, born to be in front of the camera. As the shoot progressed, the photographer pulled Jake aside, grinning widely. "Your wife, she's something special," he said, his tone filled with admiration. "She has a presence that's rare, even in this industry." Jake nodded, feeling a sense of validation that had been long overdue. "I've known that since the day I met her," he replied, unable to hide the pride in his voice. When the shoot ended, Rosa was on cloud nine. She had given it her all, and the crew was genuinely impressed. They complimented her professionalism and talent, and as she walked off the set, she felt more confident than ever before. But as they headed back home, a sense of reality crept in. As much as Rosa had nailed the shoot, she knew the challenges weren't over. The people in their town still held on to their doubts, and whispers about Jake, supporting a hopeless dream, lingered around every corner. One evening, as they were relaxing at home, Jake's phone buzzed with a text from Brian. He glanced at it, his brow furrowing. "Hey buddy, long time no see," the message read. "We should catch up sometime. Heard about Rosa's modeling. Quite the adventure, huh?" Jake showed the message to Rosa, raising an eyebrow. "Funny how they want to talk now," he muttered, a hint of bitterness creeping into his voice. Rosa placed a gentle hand on his arm. "It's okay, Jake," she said softly. "They may have doubted us, but we don't have to hold on to any grudges. We know who stood by us when it mattered, and that's what counts." As the days went by, Rosa's swimwear campaign gained traction, and she began receiving more inquiries from other brands and local boutiques. She was starting to make a name for herself, and it felt like her dreams were finally within reach. For the first time, she saw a clear path forward, and she was determined to follow it. A few weeks later, Rosa's agent, Charlotte, called with some incredible news. "Rosa, I've just received an invitation for you to walk in the Oakwood Fashion Show," she announced, her excitement evident. "This is a big regional show, and it could open up a lot of doors for you." Rosa's eyes widened, her excitement spilling over. "Oh my goodness, Charlotte, are you serious?" "Absolutely. This is the kind of exposure you need to take your career to the next level. Start preparing, Rosa. This could be the break we've been hoping for." After hanging up, Rosa rushed to Jake's restaurant, bursting through the doors with excitement. She found him behind the counter, serving a customer, but the moment he saw her, he knew something amazing had happened. "Jake," she called out, practically bouncing on her feet. "I got invited to walk in the Oakwood fashion show next month." Jake's face lit up, and he dropped everything, hurrying around the counter to embrace her. "That's incredible, Rosa. I'm so proud of you," he said, his voice filled with awe. As they celebrated, some of the customers in the diner watched with mixed expressions. Mrs. Thompson, a regular who had once dismissed Rosa's dreams, leaned over to a friend, muttering, "Well, looks like she's actually doing it." Her friend sighed, shaking her head. "I suppose we underestimated her. She's worked hard, and Jake's support, it's clear they're serious." But Rosa and Jake barely noticed the murmurs around them. They were lost in their own world, their happiness a shield that blocked out the doubts and judgment from others. As the day of the Oakwood fashion show drew closer, Rosa poured herself into preparation. She practiced her walk, studied the poses, and refined her stage presence. And Jake was always there, cheering her on and offering support at every turn. The night before the show, they sat together on the porch, the quiet calm of the evening settling around them. Rosa looked at Jake, a hint of worry in her eyes. "What if I mess up, Jake?" she whispered. "What if this is my only chance, and I blow it?" Jake took her hands in his gaze filled with unwavering confidence. "You're going to shine, Rosa. I've seen how hard you've worked, how much you've sacrificed. Just remember that you deserve this. Go out there and show them who you are." The day of the show arrived, and Rosa stood backstage, surrounded by models and stylists buzzing with excitement. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath as she reminded herself of Jake's words. "I deserve this." When it was her turn, she stepped onto the runway, the bright lights illuminating her face as she walked with confidence and poise. She could see Jake in the audience, his eyes filled with pride, and that gave her all the strength she needed. With every step, Rosa felt more sure of herself. She struck each pose with elegance, radiating the strength she had built through years of resilience and perseverance. As she reached the end of the runway, the applause swelled, and she knew she had made an impact. After the show, Rosa was approached by several agents and designers, each expressing interest in working with her. "You have something unique," one agent said, handing her a card. "I haven't seen such presence in years. We'd love to discuss future opportunities." Jake beamed with pride, his heart swelling as he watched his wife, the woman he had always believed in, receive the recognition she had worked so hard for. They walked hand in hand through the crowd, their bond stronger than ever. That night, as they drove home, Rosa turned to Jake, her voice filled with gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without you. Your belief in me, it made all the difference." Jake smiled, his eyes warm. "And I wouldn't trade any of it for the world. We're just getting started, Rosa. The world's gonna know your name. Just wait." After Rosa's success at the Oakwood fashion show, her modeling career began to blossom in ways neither she nor Jake could have ever imagined. She received calls from designers, invitations for photo shoots, and offers for small runway shows. Each opportunity felt like another step toward her dreams, and with each step, she grew more confident in her place in the industry. One afternoon, Rosa was helping Jake at the diner when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her heart skipping a beat when she saw it was Charlotte, her agent. With a deep breath, she answered. "Rosa, I've got some thrilling news." Charlotte's voice rang with excitement. "There's a major swimwear company looking to feature new faces in their summer catalog. And guess what? They want you." Rosa's hand flew to her mouth, a wave of disbelief washing over her. "Oh my gosh, Charlotte, are you serious?" "Absolutely," Charlotte laughed. "This could be a huge break for you. It's a big brand, Rosa, and this kind of exposure can open doors we've only dreamed of." After ending the call, Rosa shared the news with Jake over dinner, her excitement bubbling over. But as she mentioned the shoot dates, Jake's expression softened. "That's the same weekend as our annual barbecue," he said quietly, glancing away. Their annual barbecue was a tradition, something Jake's friends had been looking forward to all year. Rosa's heart sank. She knew how much the event meant to him. "Oh, Jake, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Maybe I can ask to reschedule?" But Jake shook his head, reaching across the table to hold her hand. "No, Rosa, This is huge for you. We can always have another barbecue next year. You've worked too hard for this opportunity." The sacrifice touched Rosa deeply, reminding her once again of how much Jake believed in her dreams. His support was a constant source of strength, a reminder that they were in this together, no matter what. The next day, as Jake prepared for the evening rush at the diner, his friends Brian and Tom stopped by. They were regulars, always up for a chat and a little town gossip, and they didn't hesitate to bring up Rosa's recent success. "So Jake," Brian began, his tone casual but probing, "we heard Rosa's off to do some fancy swimwear shoot. Guess she's moving up in the world, huh?" Jake smiled, nodding proudly. "Yeah, she's got a great opportunity coming up. I couldn't be happier for her." Tom chuckled, shaking his head. "Well, she better enjoy it while it lasts. You know how fickle the fashion world can be." Brian joined in, his tone mockingly sympathetic. "Yeah, today it's swimsuits. Tomorrow, who knows? Guess she might end up right back here in town before too long." Jake felt his temper flare, but forced himself to stay calm. "Rosa's worked hard for this," he replied, his voice steady. "And I'll support her every step of the way." Brian and Tom exchanged glances, their smirks fading as they realized Jake wasn't in the mood for their negativity. Without another word, they nodded and quietly backed off, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. As he closed up the diner that night, Jake couldn't help but feel the weight of the town's lingering skepticism. Though Rosa was achieving her dreams, he knew that some people still doubted her, waiting for the day her success would falter. But he refused to let their doubts seep into his heart. He had seen her strength, her resilience, and he knew that no amount of gossip could ever take that away. The following week, Rosa packed her bags and headed to the city for her swimwear shoot. The experience was exhilarating, and as she stood in front of the camera, she felt a surge of confidence and freedom she had never felt before. She was exactly where she was meant to be, living out her dream. When she returned home, she was welcomed with open arms by Jake, who listened with pride as she recounted every detail of the shoot. They spent that evening together, basking in the glow of her success, feeling closer than ever. But Rosa's rising fame wasn't just a topic of conversation at home. The townspeople who had once looked down on her now saw her face on posters, ads, and magazine covers. Even Mrs. Thompson, one of her harshest critics, seemed to soften, watching with reluctant admiration as Rosa's star continued to rise. One day, while Rosa was visiting the diner, a young girl approached her with wide eyes, clutching a well-worn magazine that featured Rosa on the cover. "Excuse me, Miss Rosa," she whispered shyly. "I just wanted to say, you're my hero. I want to be like you when I grow up." Rosa's heart melted as she knelt down to the girl's level, giving her a warm smile. "Thank you, sweetheart. Never stop believing in yourself, okay? Dreams are worth fighting for." The girl beamed, clutching her magazine like a treasure. Watching the exchange, Jake felt his heart swell with pride, grateful for the positive impact Rosa was making in their community. She wasn't just a model, she was becoming a symbol of hope and determination for so many. As the weeks turned into months, Rosa's career continued to flourish. Then one day Charlotte called with an invitation Rosa had only dared to dream of. "Rosa," Charlotte began, her excitement barely contained, "I have a surprise. You've been invited to walk in New York Fashion Week." Rosa nearly dropped the phone, her heart pounding. "New York Fashion Week? Are you serious?" "Yes, this is huge, Rosa. Major designers will be there, industry leaders. This could be the launchpad to an international career." Rosa could hardly believe it. She rushed home to share the news with Jake, bursting through the door with a mixture of excitement and nerves. When she told him, Jake's face lit up with pride, but Rosa noticed a flicker of concern in his eyes. "That's amazing, Rosa. I'm so proud of you," he said, his voice a mix of happiness and apprehension. "But New York City, it's so different from here. I guess I'm just worried I won't fit in with all those fashion people." Rosa's heart swelled with love for her husband. She took his hands in hers, her gaze filled with warmth. "Jake, you don't have to worry about fitting in. You're the reason I'm here in the first place. Without you, I wouldn't have made it this far." Jake's face softened as he listened to her words. Rosa led him to sit on the couch beside her, squeezing his hands reassuringly. "Remember when no one believed in me?" she said gently. "You were the only one who stood by my side. You're my rock, Jake, and we're in this together, just like we've always been. Jake let out a small chuckle, his confidence returning. You're right. I suppose I'll just have to outshine everyone there, won't I? Rosa laughed, feeling a surge of gratitude for the journey they had shared. Exactly, Mr. Small-Town restaurant owner. Besides, I think you'll do just fine. As they held each other close, both felt the enormity of what lay ahead. This was more than just another fashion show. It was the next chapter of their lives, an adventure they would face side by side, just as they always had. Bookmark? The day of New York Fashion Week arrived, and the energy in the city was electric. Rosa and Jake stepped out of their taxi onto the bustling streets, where they were met with the flash of cameras and the buzz of excitement. Photographers crowded around them, shouting Rosa's name, each vying for her attention. Dressed in a stunning emerald gown, Rosa looked every inch the star. She reached for Jake's hand, squeezing it as they moved through the crowd together. "It's okay," she whispered, sensing his tension. "Just smile and keep walking. We're in this together, remember?" Jake nodded, doing his best to relax. Despite his rented tuxedo and the overwhelming lights and cameras, he kept his gaze fixed on Rosa, feeling a rush of pride. Here she was, his wife, shining like the star he always knew she was. Inside the venue, the world was even more dazzling. Models, designers, and fashion executives mingled effortlessly, and Rosa was at the center of it all, greeted by industry figures who had noticed her talent. Jake watched as people surrounded her, eager to meet the woman whose confidence and grace had started to turn heads beyond their small town. "You must be so proud," a well-dressed woman remarked to Jake, noticing his slightly lost expression. Jake managed to smile, his eyes never leaving Rosa. "More than I can say," he replied softly, feeling his heart swell as he saw her navigating the crowd with ease. As the night wore on, Jake struggled to keep up with the fashion jargon around him, feeling like a fish out of water. But every time Rosa looked his way, flashing him a reassuring smile, he felt grounded. He knew he belonged at her side, no matter where this journey took them. During a quiet moment, Rosa slipped away from the crowd and found Jake standing near the edge of the room, looking a little overwhelmed. "How are you holding up?" she asked, concern evident in her eyes. Jake chuckled, shaking his head. "It's different," he admitted, glancing around at the glamorous crowd. "But seeing you shine like this, it makes every uncomfortable moment worth it." The two shared a quiet, reassuring moment together, savoring the knowledge that they had made it this far as a team. Rosa knew Jake's support had been her lifeline, and Jake knew that his belief in her dreams was something he'd never regret. When they returned to their small town after Fashion Week, the atmosphere was noticeably different. The whispers that once followed them now turned into admiration. People who had once dismissed Rosa's dreams as foolish were now watching her with a mixture of surprise and awe. Her face graced billboards on the outskirts of town and magazine covers that even her harshest critics couldn't ignore. Jake's phone, which had once stayed silent, now buzzed with messages from old friends and relatives who were eager to reconnect. "Hey buddy, long time no see," read one text from his childhood friend. "We should catch up sometime." Jake showed the message to Rosa with a wry smile. "Funny how everyone wants to talk now," he murmured, a trace of bitterness in his voice. Rosa placed a gentle hand on his arm. "It's okay, Jake," she said softly. "They may not have believed in us back then, but we know who truly matters. And besides, we don't have to let their opinions define us." As they walked down Main Street, hand in hand, heads turned, and familiar faces nodded their way. Even Mrs. Thompson, who had loudly doubted Rosa's ambitions in the past, now waved at them enthusiastically from her front porch. "Oh, Rosa dear, you look absolutely radiant," Mrs. Thompson called out, her tone warm and filled with pride. Rosa returned the wave with a gracious smile, feeling a sense of peace and accomplishment. It was true, she no longer needed anyone's approval. She had fought to achieve her dreams, and she had Jake, the one person who had never doubted her. Their newfound fame didn't change their values. Rosa and Jake continued their regular routine, still dining at the same spots, tipping generously, and treating everyone with kindness. They even volunteered at the local soup kitchen on Sundays, a ritual they had started back when they were struggling, and continued now as a reminder of their journey. One evening while they sat on their porch swing, Rosa turned to Jake with a thoughtful look in her eyes. "Jake, do you ever think about how far we've come?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. Jake smiled, his gaze steady and warm. "I think about it every day," he replied, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "I always knew you'd make it, Rosa. Your determination was unstoppable." Rosa felt a rush of gratitude, her heart full. "And I couldn't have done it without you," she said softly. "You believed in me when no one else did." Jake chuckled, his voice as soft with affection. "I guess we've proven them all wrong, haven't we?" They shared a quiet laugh, each reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. All the struggles, doubts, and whispered judgments seemed to fade, replaced by a deep sense of gratitude and love. A few weeks later, they received an invitation to a prestigious charity gala held by the town. It was the biggest event in the region, and to their surprise, Rosa and Jake were being honored as guests of distinction for their contributions to the community. They dressed in their best, Rosa stunning in a flowing emerald gown, while Jake looked dashing in a tailored tuxedo. As they entered the grand ballroom, heads turned, and whispers of admiration filled the room. The same people who had once doubted them now looked at them with pride and respect. Mayor Thompson, who had once viewed Rosa's dreams as impractical, stepped up to congratulate them. "We're so proud of what you've done for our community," he said, shaking Jake's hand warmly. "Your restaurant chain has created so many jobs. And Rosa, your modeling school is inspiring a new generation." Rosa smiled, her heart filled with gratitude. "We're just happy to give back to the community that shaped us," she replied sincerely. As they were ushered to the stage, they were presented with a Crystal Award for their contributions to community development and youth empowerment. Jake accepted it with a heart full of emotion, glancing out at the sea of faces now filled with admiration and support. Where there was once doubt, he now saw respect and pride. "Thank you all," Jake began, his voice thick with emotion. "This award means so much to us, but the real reward is seeing the impact we've been able to make. Rosa and I know what it's like to face doubt, and we want to ensure that no one else has to face those challenges alone." The crowd erupted in applause, their support a validation of the couple's hard work and perseverance. Jake and Rosa shared a knowing look, realizing just how far they'd come from those early days of struggle and doubt. As they stepped off the stage, they found a quiet corner of the ballroom to catch their breath, holding each other close. Rosa gazed out at the glittering crowd, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Can you believe it, Jake? Look at where we are now." Jake squeezed her hand gently, his heart swelling with pride. "We've come so far, haven't we?" They stood together, savoring the moment, grateful for the love and resilience that had carried them through. The doubts and judgments of others had once weighed on them, but now they knew that their bond was stronger than any obstacle. In the quiet glow of the ballroom, they felt truly blessed, their journey a testament to the power of love and determination. After the gala, Jake and Rosa's lives felt fuller than ever. Their hard work had not only transformed their own lives but also left a mark on the town. Their journey from being judged to being admired had become a powerful symbol for their community. Rosa's modeling career continued to flourish, taking her to runways and photo shoots in places she'd only dreamed of: Paris, Milan, and New York. Her name became known in the industry, and her graceful stride and glowing smile became iconic. Back in their hometown, Jake's restaurant was busier than ever. Locals and visitors alike flocked to the diner, hoping to catch a glimpse of the famous couple, or to try the food that had become nearly as famous as Rosa's modeling career. Jake's Diner, once a small, humble establishment, had grown into a well-loved spot, with more locations popping up across the state. Yet the original diner, with its checkered floors and red vinyl booths, held a special place in Jake's heart. Bookmark, go back. One sunny afternoon, while Jake was managing the lunch rush, Rosa walked in, her eyes sparkling as she greeted the staff. She took time to chat with each employee, asking about their families, their dreams, and their goals. The staff adored her, and their admiration showed in the way they looked up to her. Rosa was more than a local success. She was a role model, a living testament to the power of perseverance. After Jake finished with a few customers, he joined Rosa at a corner booth, and they settled in for a rare, quiet meal together. Jake watched her as she laughed, her face radiant with happiness and gratitude. "How was the shoot today?" he asked, reaching across the table to hold her hand. Rosa smiled, her eyes lighting up. "It was amazing, Jake. But as much as I love the travel and the excitement, nothing feels quite as good as coming home to you and this little diner." Jake's heart warmed at her words. Just then, a familiar figure entered the restaurant. It was Brian, his old friend, who had once questioned Rosa's dreams so dismissively. Jake noticed that Brian looked different, less certain, maybe even a bit humbled. He approached their table, clearing his throat nervously. "Jake, Rosa," he started, avoiding eye contact. I wanted to say congratulations. I didn't see it back then, but what you've accomplished is truly incredible. I was wrong about both of you, and I just wanted you to know I'm proud of you." Jake and Rosa exchanged a look. Rosa gave him a small nod, encouraging him. Jake extended a hand, his voice steady. "Thank you, Brian. That means a lot. Life's too short to hold on to grudges, and we're just glad you're here." Brian's face softened, relief evident in his eyes as he shook Jake's hand. "Thank you, Jake," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Rosa smiled warmly, feeling a sense of closure she hadn't known she needed. Later that evening, as they walked home, Rosa squeezed Jake's hand, her expression thoughtful. "You know, I've been thinking," she said softly. "I want to give back in a way that really matters. I was thinking, what if we opened a school right here in town, a modeling school for young girls who have dreams like mine?" Jake's eyes sparkled with pride and excitement. "That's a beautiful idea, Rosa. You've got so much to share, and there are so many girls who would love to learn from you." Rosa's face lit up as she imagined it, her mind racing with possibilities. "We could teach them everything I had to figure out on my own, how to walk the runway, pose for the camera, handle interviews, and most importantly, how to stay true to themselves in such a tough industry." Jake nodded, his smile widening. "And you could bring in your contacts from the industry to give them real insight. It would be incredible, Rosa. You'd be giving these young women a chance they might never have had otherwise." Rosa's eyes misted over with emotion as she imagined a bustling school filled with aspiring models, each one full of hope and determination. "We could even offer scholarships," she added, her voice choked with excitement. "So that money isn't a barrier. Just like we wished it hadn't been back then." They spent the rest of the walk home discussing their plans, dreaming up ideas for the school and all the ways they could make a difference. For Rosa, the school was more than just an idea. It was a chance to give back to the town that had once doubted her, but now celebrated her success. It was a way to show young people that they, too, could achieve their dreams, no matter the odds. In the following months, the plans for the school began to take shape. They chose an old, unused building in the heart of town and transformed it into a modern, inspiring space. As the grand opening approached, the town buzzed with excitement. Young women from not only their hometown, but neighboring areas signed up for the school's first classes, eager to learn from Rosa and make their mark in the world of modeling. On the morning of the grand opening, the sun shone brightly as Jake and Rosa stood together in front of the new building. A crowd of friends, family, and supporters had gathered, their faces beaming with pride and admiration. Rosa held Jake's hand tightly, feeling a rush of emotions as she looked at the building that represented not only her journey but also the dreams of so many others. They cut the ribbon, and the doors to the Jones School of Modeling officially opened. Eager students streamed in, their faces filled with excitement and hope. Rosa led them through the newly renovated rooms, showing them the runway practice space, the photography studio, and the classrooms where they'd learn about the industry's ins and outs. Over the weeks that followed, the school came alive with activity. Rosa poured herself into teaching, sharing not just the technical skills, but the life lessons she'd learned along her journey. Her students listened intently, inspired by her story, and grateful for the opportunity to follow in her footsteps. The impact of the school rippled through the community. Young women walked with newfound confidence, their postures straighter, their smiles brighter. Parents who had once doubted the practicality of modeling began to see its value, encouraged by the skills and self-assurance their daughters were gaining. One afternoon, as Rosa was wrapping up a class, a young woman named Mia approached her, her voice filled with gratitude. "Miss Rosa," she began, her eyes shining with emotion, "thank you for believing in us. I never thought I'd have the chance to be here. You've given me hope in ways I can't describe." Rosa's heart swelled as she hugged Mia, feeling the weight of her impact. "Mia, never stop believing in yourself," she whispered. "Your dreams are worth fighting for, just like mine were." As the school flourished, Jake's restaurant continued to thrive. It was now a bustling chain with multiple locations, each one a reminder of the journey he and Rosa had shared. But the original diner, with its cozy booths and vintage charm, would always be his favorite. Its walls were adorned with photographs from his journey with Rosa, each one telling a piece of their story. On a busy Saturday evening, as Jake moved through the kitchen, checking on dishes and encouraging his staff, his phone buzzed with a message. It was from Rosa, who was on her way back from a photo shoot, asking if he'd be free to meet her at the diner. Jake's heart swelled with joy as he quickly replied. When she arrived later that night, looking as radiant as ever, she was greeted with smiles from the staff and customers alike. As she made her way through the restaurant, she stopped to chat with each employee, asking about their families and aspirations. Rosa and Jake were more than just successful. They were beloved, a beacon of inspiration in their community. As they sat down to enjoy a quiet dinner together, Jake looked at his wife, feeling a rush of gratitude for the journey they'd shared. They had overcome doubt, adversity, and countless obstacles, yet their love had only grown stronger. Together, they had built a life filled with purpose, joy, and unbreakable resilience. As Jake and Rosa enjoyed their dinner, the restaurant door swung open and a group of familiar faces stepped inside. Jake immediately recognized them. They were the same friends who had once mocked him for standing by Rosa, for supporting her unrealistic dreams. But tonight, their faces held none of the old sneers or dismissive smiles. Instead, they looked hesitant, almost remorseful. "Jake, Rosa," one of them, Tom, spoke up, his voice soft and uncertain. "We hope we're not interrupting anything." The group shuffled awkwardly, glancing between each other and the floor, clearly unsure how to proceed. Jake looked to Rosa, who gave him a gentle nod, signaling she was open to hearing them out. He turned back to his old friends, his expression calm but guarded. "What can we do for you?" he asked, his voice steady. Tom took a deep breath, stepping forward. "We came to apologize," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "We were wrong, terribly wrong about you both. We let our small-town prejudices cloud our judgment, and we didn't see what you two had. How incredible you both are." Rosa felt Jake's hand tighten in hers as another old friend, Brian, chimed in. "We've watched you both grow and achieve so much. The way you've given back to this community, the opportunities you've created, it's admirable, really. We were fools not to support you from the beginning." Rosa's eyes softened, and she could see the genuine regret in their faces. The weight of years of hurt and resentment lifted as she realized they, too, were human, capable of change and reflection. Jake took a deep breath, looking at his former friends. "Thank you for your apology," he said quietly. "It means a lot to hear this from you." He paused, glancing at Rosa, then continued. "Life's too short to hold on to grudges. We've all grown and changed over the years, and I forgive you." The group seemed to exhale collectively, relief flooding their faces as they expressed their gratitude. Rosa watched Jake with admiration, seeing his capacity for forgiveness as one of the many reasons she had fallen in love with him. Her heart swelled with pride, knowing that their journey had come full circle in the most unexpected way. As they left the restaurant, Rosa found herself thinking about the impact they had made on the people around them. She looked at Jake, her mind spinning with new ideas and dreams, a fire of inspiration burning brighter than ever. The next morning, Rosa stood in front of her first class of students at the Jones School of Modeling. The room was filled with young women from different backgrounds, each with her own story and dreams. Some looked eager, others apprehensive, but all were filled with hope and determination. Rosa took a deep breath, her voice warm and encouraging. "Welcome, everyone," she began, meeting the eyes of each student. "I know many of you are nervous, but I want you to know that you're in a safe space here. This school exists to help you become the best version of yourselves, both inside and out. She paused, letting her gaze sweep over the room. I started just like you. I came from a small town where no one believed in my dreams. I faced rejection after rejection, and there were days I wanted to give up, but I had a dream, and I had someone who believed in me, even when I doubted myself. A young woman in the front row, Maria, raised her hand. Miss Rosa, how did you keep going when everyone told you to quit? She asked, her voice tinged with a vulnerability that struck a chord with Rosa. Rosa smiled softly, her heart aching with understanding. It wasn't easy, Maria, but every time I felt like giving up, I reminded myself why I started. I wanted to be the person I never saw growing up, a model who looked like me. And now I want to be that support for each of you, just like Jake was for me. Another student, Tanya, spoke up, her voice filled with uncertainty. But what if we're not good enough? What if we don't fit the mold? Rosa's expression turned serious, her voice steady as she replied. Listen to me, all of you. Beauty comes in all shapes, sizes, and colors. This industry is changing, and we're going to be part of that change. Your uniqueness is your strength, and no one can take that away from you. As the class continued, Rosa shared stories from her journey, the highs and lows, the struggles and triumphs. She taught them about walking the runway, posing with confidence, and handling interviews. But most importantly, she taught them to believe in themselves and to find the strength to stand tall even when the world doubted them. Watching her students' eyes light up with hope and determination, Rosa saw herself in each of them. The same dreams, the same fears, but now with the guidance she had once needed herself. Jake watched from the doorway, his heart swelling with pride as he saw his wife becoming a mentor, an inspiration to the next generation. That evening, as they sat together on their porch swing, Rosa turned to Jake, a soft smile on her face. I never imagined we'd come this far, she whispered, resting her head on his shoulder. Jake wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. And to think, this all started with a cup of coffee and a dream, he murmured, his voice filled with gratitude. They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Their journey had been filled with challenges, but it had also brought them the kind of love and resilience that only grew stronger with time. As the stars began to twinkle overhead, Jake glanced at Rosa, his eyes filled with admiration. You know, Rosa, he said softly, you're not just a model, you're a force. You've changed lives, including mine. Rosa's eyes sparkled with emotion as she looked up at him. And you, Jake, you gave me the strength to believe in myself. None of this would have been possible without you. They sat together, their hands intertwined, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. Their love story, once doubted and judged, had blossomed into something far greater than they had ever imagined. They had turned whispers of doubt into applause, and their dreams into a reality that touched the lives of so many. In the quiet peace of their small town, surrounded by the life they had built together, Jake and Rosa knew they were exactly where they were meant to be. Their love had weathered every storm, and in the glow of the evening sky, they knew it would continue to guide them through whatever lay ahead. The years rolled on, and Jake and Rosa's legacy only grew stronger. Rosa's modeling school flourished, becoming a cornerstone of hope and opportunity in the community. Young women came from neighboring towns and even other states, eager to learn from someone who had walked the path of determination and success. With every class she taught, Rosa saw herself in these young students, and she poured her heart into giving them the tools they needed to succeed, not just in modeling, but in life. Jake's Diner, which had now grown into a beloved chain, continued to thrive as well. What began as a small, cozy spot with a handful of booths and a warm, home-cooked menu had become a sensation. Each location was a tribute to the values Jake held dear: good food, hard work, and a welcoming environment. Every restaurant in the chain bore a small plaque with the words, "Where Dreams Begin," a quiet nod to the journey he and Rosa had taken. One evening, as they closed up the original diner together, Jake and Rosa found themselves reminiscing about the early days. The small moments of doubt, the harsh words from others, and the silent determination that had kept them going all seemed so distant, yet vivid in their memories. "Do you remember the first time you walked through that door?" Jake asked, gesturing to the diner's entrance. Rosa laughed, her eyes warm with nostalgia. "I was just a girl with scuffed heels and a big dream," she replied. "I remember thinking, if I can't make it here, I can't make it anywhere. And then, you welcomed me like I'd been coming here my whole life." Jake took her hand, smiling. "Well, you've always belonged here, Rosa. Even when the world didn't see it, I did." Their journey had transformed them, but through all the fame, success, and recognition, they had remained true to themselves. Jake continued volunteering at the local shelter, spending his Sunday mornings making meals for those in need, while Rosa dedicated her time to mentoring the young women at her school, teaching them not only how to walk with confidence, but also how to stand up for themselves. One sunny afternoon, as they walked hand in hand through the town square, they spotted a group of young girls gathered around a magazine stand, admiring a magazine with Rosa's face on the cover. When they recognized her, their eyes lit up with excitement, and one of the girls approached her shyly. "Miss Rosa, you're amazing," she exclaimed, her voice filled with admiration. "How did you do it? How did you go from here to there?" Rosa knelt down, looking the girl in the eyes with a gentle smile. "It all started with a dream, just like yours," she said warmly, "and with someone who believed in me, even when I doubted myself." She glanced over at Jake, who was watching with a smile, his heart filled with pride. "As long as you keep believing in yourself and working hard, you can do anything." The girl beamed, inspired, and Rosa stood, taking Jake's hand as they continued their walk. She leaned into him, grateful for every twist and turn their lives had taken. In the years that followed, their story became a local legend, something people told their children to remind them of the power of dreams and love. Young couples in town would come to Jake and Rosa for advice, hoping to find the secret to love as enduring and strong as theirs. And on warm summer evenings, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jake and Rosa would often sit on their porch swing, reflecting on the beautiful life they had built together. They had proven the doubters wrong, not through defiance or anger, but by simply being themselves and never letting go of each other's dreams. Their love story had started with a single act of kindness and had grown into a legacy that would live on in their community long after they were gone. As they watched the stars twinkle above their little town, they knew that together they had accomplished something far greater than they ever could have alone. They had created a life filled with purpose, joy, and love, a love that had stood the test of time and would continue to shine, a beacon of hope for all those who dared to dream. Jake and Rosa's story is a powerful reminder that love, perseverance, and unwavering belief in each other can overcome even the greatest obstacles. What began as a journey filled with doubts and hardships transformed into a testament to the strength of resilience and the rewards of supporting one another's dreams. Their love, once met with judgment and ridicule, blossomed into a story that touched not just their own lives, but those around them. It reminds us that with determination and a partner who believes in us, there's no limit to what we can accomplish. At the heart of this story lies a profound lesson about the importance of believing in ourselves and others. Jake and Rosa's commitment to each other and their courage to face criticism inspired an entire community to reconsider its values, leading to positive change and acceptance. This story teaches us that love and support are often the most powerful forces we have to lift each other up, realize our full potential, and impact the world for the better. As Rosa and Jake built a life rooted in love and purpose, they proved that true success is not just about fame or recognition, but about lifting others as we climb, creating opportunities, and giving back. Their journey shows us that, no matter where we come from, we have the power to create a legacy that goes far beyond our own dreams, impacting others for generations to come. If you found this story touching, comment 1 below. If you found it truly inspiring, comment 2. And please feel free to share your own stories of resilience, love, and perseverance in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this one. We'd love to hear your thoughts about Jake and Rosa's journey in the comments below. Let us know what part spoke to you the most.